All right, welcome into Fundraise Now. My name is Alex Simon, and with me today is Alex Wilson, co-founder of the Giving Block. Alex, welcome.
Hey, Alex, thanks for having me on. I'm looking forward to the conversation today.
As I said, great name. I think it's good. So,
Yeah.
so talk to me a little bit about, you're the co-founder of a platform. Correct me, I'm just going to try to work my way through it, of a platform that is able to give charities the ability to accept cryptocurrency donations, specifically right now, I believe Bitcoin. But help me out a bit. Tell me just a bit about it, the 5 W's and H, who, what, when, where, why, how, of the organization, of your startup, and how you guys went about finding this company.
Yeah. So starting with kind of the quick backstory of how we started the company. Before getting into this, I was your more typical management consultant working mostly with Fortune 500 companies. I happened to end up on a team that was focused on emerging technology, which was a combination of AI, IoT, blockchain, and cryptocurrency. And then more than anything, kind of on the side, started trading and investing in cryptocurrency. And then, in 2017, when you probably saw the headlines of Bitcoin hitting 20,000 for the first time, noticed basically a lot of people were making a lot of money in crypto, of course. And as a result, they were trying to donate some of that money to nonprofits.
Yes.
That most nonprofits didn't know how to accept it. And I had a good friend from Wake Forest that was working at a nonprofit, and we were both living in DC. And basically, we pitched his boss on, hey, let us create the first easy way for nonprofits to accept Bitcoin and other cryptocurrency donations. And you all can sort of be our first pilot client. And then, fast forward a couple of years now, and we're working with about 200 different nonprofits, everything from the smaller and local organizations to, some of the biggest in the country, like United Way Worldwide and American Cancer, Save the Children, you name it. And as you can imagine, it's really blown up, especially these last 6 months or last year, with crypto really taking off.
All right, so let's just define terms, because this is very new. And, I was in dialogue with somebody from one of the Ivy League schools talking about, and I think it was back when just that bubble or that peak, which really wasn't a peak, where it was around 17 to 20,000, as you were talking about. This is probably in 2017.
Yep.
And I said, do you have the ability, was it an Ivy League school? Do you have the ability, which I would imagine some of their alumni own crypto, to accept Bitcoin? And they said, no, but she goes, if they really wanted to give it to us, we'd find a way. And I'm going, God, it seems like, and at this time I'm thinking that it, it's positioning itself as a global currency. It's positioning itself as something that where people can conduct business. And so I'm at right now at some of the biggest foundations and nonprofits across the country and around the world, they still don't have this ability to accept donations. So, but let's just define terms and back it up, because this is still super new to people. What is cryptocurrency?
Yeah, so the kind of, without getting too into the technical weeds, because we could spend all day on that, at a high level, right? So the backstory is in 2008, 2009, when people were pretty, I would say, frustrated with sort of the financial crisis and how it was being handled, right? Someone on the internet going by the name of Satoshi Nakamoto, could have been a group of people or a person, still unknown, and they've stayed totally anonymous, put out the idea for Bitcoin. The concept was that this was going to be, a purely peer-to-peer sort of digital cash system that wasn't controlled by any individual government, company, or individual. It was really, in a sense, controlled by the users. It was really democratizing access to money and financial services. And in early 2009, Bitcoin was born, with the kind of mantra of, this is a better and alternative financial system that's more fair. And then after Bitcoin, tons of other cryptocurrencies were founded. Now there's thousands of them out there. Bitcoin is still by far the largest and the most well-known cryptocurrency. And you'll probably also hear the term blockchain a lot as well. So Bitcoin was the first use of blockchain technology, which is really the underlying technology behind it. You can think of blockchain as sort of this public ledger system where every transaction that ever happens is recorded. You can see every dollar that's being moved around in a very public way, and that record is permanent. So that's kind of the high level piece of it. We don't, like to get too into the weeds of the technical piece because then we could spend all day on that.
Okay, so back in that when it was making news and at 20,000, and then it obviously went down from there. Several things happened in which I actually pulled out some of my investments, which I think a lot of people did. But
yeah,
the JP Morgan Chase and Goldman and other key banks around the world basically said it's not going to be recognized. There was a sense by governments and banks that it would never be recognized. And I felt like, well, if it's not recognized by them, then it's probably going to go to zero eventually. Obviously, I made a mistake. So why do you think it's continuing to go in value? And why do you think that, cryptocurrency, the overall umbrella of cryptocurrency and the I don't want to talk about the blockchain right now. I guess we'll get into that. But why do you think it's continuing to see value, even though probably the two biggest hurdles, in my view, that I even have talked to older generations about is the banks and the federal governments?
Yeah. So I would say one of the fundamental shifts compared to 2017 is, in 2017 and 2016, there was really this idea of blockchain, not Bitcoin, right? The banks are like, Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, we don't want anything to do with that kind of stuff, but we're interested in blockchain, was kind of what you were hearing from the big companies. Now that narrative has completely flipped, and they're less interested in blockchain, more broadly, and more interested in Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. So it's interesting to see that, way of thinking change. And I think one of the biggest drivers behind it is actually, the Fed and monetary policy. So, with Bitcoin, there's ever only going to be 21 million coins, no matter what. Someone can't just wake up tomorrow and say there's going to be an extra million. And in a lot of ways, since the financial crisis happened, we've continued to basically print money at a rate that we never had before, right?
Right.
And COVID, actually accelerated a lot of those things with some stimulus bills and trying to think about how do we keep the economy, stable. And people are increasingly worried about inflation. Something like 25% of the money supply has been printed in the last year. So you can imagine why that would concern people. And people are going to Bitcoin and viewing it as a hedge against inflation, really, and basically seeing it as digital gold for younger generations. Younger generations are less interested in buying gold and more interested in buying Bitcoin, and that's their hedge against inflation. Older generations always viewed gold for that purpose, but it's really becoming Bitcoin now for more and more people.
So let's move to the blockchain, which I've been told, or the analogy is a kind of public ledger, of which the analogy is the open kind of Excel spreadsheet of which you can see transactions. You don't necessarily see like Alex Simon gave money to Alex Wilson, but you see like wallet XYZ gave money, or there was a transaction there. So just help me. Let's define blockchain for folks that don't know.
Yeah, I mean your overall description is pretty spot on in the sense that it's this sort of open ledger system. And some of the key traits, right, are that it has these public transaction records, especially in the case of something like Bitcoin. I mean, there is a difference between, let's say, what people consider a public blockchain and a private blockchain. But for the purposes of this, we should really just be thinking about public blockchains. Private blockchains would be some of these enterprise blockchain solutions from the IBMs of the world. But for the sake of cryptocurrency, they're primarily public blockchains. And it's not really that much more than what you said. It's this general public ledger that's out in the open, right? It's made Bitcoin the most transparent form of money ever created, right? Imagine, if this use case we always talk about when it comes to sort of transparency and accountability with blockchain and Bitcoin. Like, imagine if the government collected taxes in Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, right? And it all comes into the treasury, and then it gets distributed out to the different agencies and all sorts of things. And you could actually see where the money was being spent and used, right? You could account for every single dollar, no matter what. That would be a pretty radical change compared to how governments are run now. But that's how you can think about how it's going to be probably applied to businesses, to nonprofits, to all sorts of different industries. But I think the government example is one that's pretty relatable.
So I saw a tweet by somebody who I follow. They're very good in the startup realm. I don't want to say who they are, but they basically said they could see a government, in order to improve its balance sheet, buying into a cryptocurrency, or trying to acquire that asset, in which case that would offer massive legitimacy to it. So, what are your thoughts on that?
So I think if a central bank of a country does start to buy any sort of cryptocurrency, it's going to be Bitcoin. It's not going to be anything else. Bitcoin is still the leader. It's the most proven. Like we said, it's a kind of digital gold. I definitely think it's only a matter of time before it happens. I think some of the more sort of what I would consider forward thinking and sort of financially savvy countries like Switzerland or Singapore would be candidates as early adopters. I can only hope the US kind of keeps up and considers it as well. There's been some interesting news as well. You've maybe seen Mayor Suarez in Miami has become quite a big proponent of Bitcoin.
Yes.
So that could become maybe the first sort of local level of a Bitcoin purchase in the US government. So in short, I think it's going to happen. I'm not sure who's going to do it first, but I think it's going to happen relatively soon.
So what's your take on Ethereum and that coin and that blockchain?
Yeah, I mean, I think Ethereum does a lot of cool things. It's probably going to remain, I would say, sort of the second largest cryptocurrency for the foreseeable future, in my opinion. I think the sort of pitch of what Ethereum is supposed to do is quite a bit different than Bitcoin. There's a lot of things you can do right now on Ethereum that you can't do with Bitcoin. And there's pros and cons of each, but it's hard to compare the two because they're really serving different use cases. I could also see a world, though, where some of the functionality offered on Ethereum comes over to Bitcoin, especially when you start talking about things like DeFi. Bitcoin by really on purpose is relatively slow to change. That's on purpose. People like to complain about, they look at it like it's taking too long to upgrade things, taking too long to change things. That's on purpose. So I would say Ethereum is a lot more experimental. And it's still early days for Ethereum. It's less proven in that sense that it hasn't been around as long. And I would say one of the biggest downsides and one of the biggest criticisms against Ethereum is that they haven't quite, defined the monetary policy in as clear terms as Bitcoin, right? They're still kind of figuring some things out as they go. And I would say in general, it's more likely that the path of Ethereum shifts in the next year than it is for Bitcoin, for example. But still really cool technology regardless.
Interesting. So there's more stability, I think, in Bitcoin is what you're saying, rather than Ethereum's maybe there's some volatility because it can change more quickly.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's shift to your product and how it works, and how it works kind of on the front end and the back end. So I'm a charity, I'm an executive director, and we're looking at finding ways to accept as many resources as possible, and we're interested in your product. I think I was playing around with it. It's kind of like an extension of the website, and you can go in there and kind of put the money. So how does the transaction work?
Yeah, so we've got a really easy to use donation widget.
Right.
We have our fundraising platform and we aggregate all the different causes we work with, and each nonprofit has a profile on our website with that donation widget. But then we also set up a donate cryptocurrency page on each nonprofit's website. Typically it's on other ways to give next to things like stock donations. So you've got those two different entry points. The widget is the same in both places, though. And in short,
Okay.
when a donor is going through that widget, first it's going to ask them, which cryptocurrency do you want to donate? Bitcoin, Ethereum, maybe something else. We support about 12 different ones, and we're in the process of adding some more. Then, of course, they're going to enter in the amount they want to donate. The widget's going to collect some basic donor info like name.
In US dollars?
You can enter in an amount in US dollars or in crypto.
Okay.
And then there's a form basically for some basic donor info like name, email, address. And then on the last page, they're basically going to be given a cryptocurrency wallet address that belongs to that nonprofit. So the donor would copy that over in their wallet and basically click send. A few minutes later, they'll see a tax receipt pop up in their email. And the nonprofit on the back end will have the option of either holding onto the crypto or having it automatically converted to US dollars. It's probably not surprising to hear that about 90% of our clients opt for that automatic conversion because they don't want to have to think about when to sell or worry about volatility or anything like that. But we're seeing more and more nonprofits get comfortable with the idea of holding the actual cryptocurrency longer term.
Interesting. Well, that's the policy with stock. I've worked at several nonprofits, and so the policy is to sell when donors are giving us stock. We're obligated. I think we write sometimes an actual policy that we sell the stock just because of what you just said. They don't want to gamble with it and possibly lose money, even though this is becoming a safer and safer investment.
Yeah.
So interesting. So on the back end, you said it basically goes into the charity's wallet.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we've partnered with a cryptocurrency exchange. So when they onboard with us, they open up a cryptocurrency exchange account with our partner, Gemini. And it's almost like opening, let's say a Fidelity or Charles Schwab account to accept stocks, except in this case, it's for crypto. And that account on the back end is linked up with the widget on the front end.
Okay. And what's the pricing breakdown of your product?
Yeah, so it's certainly evolved over the years, and there's a pretty big range. But at a high level, we've got a couple different packages, and we tried to really structure this to be similar to other fundraising platforms. So we have a basic package and a premium package. The key difference between the two is basically the level of sort of hands-on marketing support that we offer the nonprofits. So with the more expensive package, you get support in putting together, let's say, a press release for saying you're accepting crypto. We always joke that we don't want our clients to accidentally write Bitcoin as 2 words instead of 1 word because they're going to scare away the donors. Little things like that. So basic package costs $2,500 a year. Premium package costs $5,000 a year. And then there's a processing fee on donations as well.
Okay. So how many nonprofits do you work currently with about?
Just about 200-ish.
200. Is there anybody that do you have competition in this area?
Not really. We have some, the closest thing we have competition is sort of indirect competitors, I would say, which are more sort of general crypto payment processors. But as you know, nonprofits like to have a product that's tailored to their needs and has nonprofit specific features like the tax receipts, for example, right? And CRM friendly donor reporting, things like that. So we're lucky in the sense that we're really the only ones focused on this market right now. But of course, that can change any day.
Sure. And how are you seeing as far as working with your clients and your customers? How are you seeing just like the transaction take place and like as far as the donors giving to the nonprofits? How are they? Have you heard any feedback from them as well?
Yeah. So an interesting thing we're noticing is about 80% of the donation volume is coming through our fundraising platform versus our nonprofit sites.
Okay.
So the main reason for that is because, we are creating our fundraising platform as the go-to place for crypto donors.
Okay.
So we're working with corporate partners, we're working with media partners to drive as many crypto users as possible to that fundraising platform. And once they get there, they're choosing a cause that resonates with them.
Okay.
And as a result of that, we're noticing that the majority of these donors, these crypto donors, are brand new donors that didn't have a relationship with the nonprofit at all before. Part of that is because a lot of these donors tend to be on the younger side. And
Right.
maybe they're just sort of starting their philanthropic journey.
Mm-hmm.
And the other piece is most crypto donors don't take the time to reach out to a nonprofit and ask if they'll accept crypto if they don't see it on their website. They'll just go somewhere that already accepts it. So we often hear from nonprofits like, well, no one's really reaching out about crypto. And it's like, well, that's what all of our clients have said. And then they got set up and now they're raising, tens of thousands of dollars on a regular basis. And the gift size on average is a lot bigger than, let's say, a credit card donation. It's
Right.
more similar to a stock donation, where the average gift size is looking at about like $1,100 on average right now. So pretty significant size.
So one gift can really immediately takes care of the if you're on the smaller side of your program.
Yeah.
Interesting. Huh. Okay. Well, how are you going to continue to market this this stuff? I'm just curious. I'm interested.
Yeah. So a big priority for us to scale this is to integrate with other existing nonprofit products. So we recently integrated with Neon One with their CRM. We're working with other nonprofit CRMs, payment gateways, payment processors to kind of bring this into the existing nonprofit ecosystem and make this even easier to use. Because right now, right, it's basically a system that's separate from everything else they're using. We want to really bring that all together. And of course, from sort of a sales and marketing perspective, it's a lot easier to reach a lot of nonprofits when we're partnering with these companies that already have thousands of nonprofit clients, right? Instead of kind of the one-on-one sales hustle. So that's definitely a big priority for us this year.
Where do you see the future of it? I mean, do you see, I've just heard a lot of, in the past 2 months, it just seems like it's really blockchain has exploded. We use the word DeFi, which is short for decentralized finance. Do you see a global currency? Do you see, used blockchain technology across the world? That's what's currently happening, but do you see it as kind of the mainstream, or where do you see the future of crypto?
Yeah. So, I'm obviously biased, right?
Yeah.
So this is just my opinion, but I think Bitcoin is playing out as becoming this sort of global reserve currency. I don't think there's almost like no turning back at this point, right? It's already reached a pretty good massive sort of institutional individual adoption that I don't think it's slowing down anytime soon. And it doesn't mean that, the US dollar or the euro or other currencies are going to cease to exist. I think they can certainly exist in parallel, but I think this system of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is going to become more and more common and more used. And I actually think, even though it won't, push out the US dollar completely or anything like that, I think it forces governments and central banks, it kind of keeps them in check in a sense, if you know what I mean, in the sense that they won't just be allowed to just endlessly print money anymore, right? Because they'll be an actual alternative. And if they don't kind of get their act together at some point, people will completely migrate over to cryptocurrency maybe. That's going to take a lot of years to play out, right? And it's hard to predict how long. But I don't think, for example, the US dollar is going away anytime soon.
No. And I think the companies have an actual, which I didn't think at the time, but an actual, say in all this. So when, Elon Musk comes out and says, we're going to be accepting Bitcoin for our cars, or, things like this. And I think you're seeing more companies do that. Or you can, I think the owner of the Dallas Mavericks,
Mark Cuban.
Mark Cuban is, you can give us cryptocurrency for we're selling tickets to the Dallas Mavericks. So when it starts to have like mainstream and just the companies accept it, then there's some validity there. What are you seeing as far as the donors? Have you heard any kind of stories from your clients or the donors as to why they're giving their crypto away? They wanted to, I won't put words in your mouth. Have you heard anything as to why?
Yeah, beyond just wanting to give back, the biggest reason they're donating crypto instead of, let's say, a check or credit card is simply the tax incentive. From a tax perspective for the donor, it's just like donating stock, since the IRS has classified it as property. So for the donor, they don't pay capital gains taxes on the donated crypto, and they get a fair market value deduction on their tax return. Of course, the nonprofit doesn't pay any tax when they get the donation too. So that usually means they're able to donate, 30% more. They're getting a 30% higher deduction, and the nonprofit's getting 30% more dollars. So it's really a win all around for everyone involved. And for a lot of these donors, they plan on only donating in cryptocurrency for the rest of their life. As long as that tax incentive exists, they don't ever plan on donating any other way because their dollars don't go as far. This is the most tax efficient way and the smartest way for them to give. In some cases, someone might donate crypto and repurchase that same amount of crypto right afterwards, because there's basically a tax arbitrage opportunity where they, let's say they normally give $10,000 a year. They can just donate $10,000 worth of Bitcoin that's appreciated, and then take that $10,000 in cash they would have used to donate and repurchase the same amount of Bitcoin, and they've just raised their cost basis of the Bitcoin. So they're better off, the nonprofit's better off, everyone's happy.
Talk to me a little bit about the stats and the data, if you could, Alex. How much has been given through your platform? I don't know if you can share that. And how many donors have given through your platform?
Yeah,
through your company.
So I can give you kind of some high level numbers. We've seen millions of dollars raised, and the amount we're raising every month is increasing significantly, especially the last 3 to 6 months. So I think we'll continue to raise millions and millions of dollars on a very regular basis for our clients. And in terms of the numbers of donors, I would say total we've had maybe, we're probably getting close to 10,000 donors.
Wow.
So, when you think about it, though, there's 100 million crypto users out there. We've only tapped into a small market so far, or a small portion of that, right? We're really just getting started. But, selling crypto donations to nonprofits who tend to lag behind a little bit when it comes to technology is a bit of an uphill battle. So we expect it's going to take a while. This isn't going to happen overnight. It's going to be at least 5 or 10 years before this becomes common for nonprofits everywhere to be accepting. But there's certainly a first mover and early mover advantage for the nonprofits who choose to get on board now.
Yeah, absolutely. Nonprofits tend to be a slower industry. I'll just say that for sure. So talk to me, I guess, a little bit about what's next. I think you hinted a little bit about it, but where do you see you guys in 5-10 years?
Yeah, 5-10 years. We want to be the company that's making crypto donations easy for pretty much every nonprofit out there, right? We really think this becomes something that every single nonprofit needs to have. This will become just as common as credit card donations. The way we look at it is, 15 years ago, not every nonprofit accepted credit card donations or even had a website, right? Now they all do. This will probably follow sort of a similar sort of slow path of adoption. But at a certain point, 5-10 years maybe, it becomes a necessity. And it's just something that they're all doing, and it just becomes a common way of giving. So we've got a lot of work ahead of us, but we want to equip as many nonprofits as possible to be able to accept this new asset class that's, in my biased opinion, only becoming more and more important.
Just going over my notes. I don't want to miss anything. Is there anything I missed? Is there anything that you think we didn't cover?
No, we hit a lot of the main points. I guess one thing, and I'm not even sure anymore if I mentioned this, but beyond the fundraising outcomes that our clients are seeing, a huge selling point of this too for the nonprofits is that
Uh-huh.
this is a way for them to connect with sort of the next generation of donors, right? It's not surprising to hear that the majority of crypto users are on the younger side.
Yeah.
So the nonprofits love this opportunity to connect with younger donors, often first-time donors, and start building those, lifelong relationships with them. And from talking with some donors, it really means a lot to them to see these nonprofits start accepting crypto. And they're in some ways going to remember who the early adopters were, right? I mean, they get excited by seeing
Mhm.
more people accept crypto. And so far, it seems like a lot of them plan on rewarding those early adopters for, being an early mover. So it's cool to see some of these younger donors starting to get more and more involved with nonprofits and starting to build those longer term relationships.
Absolutely. It's fascinating. It is going to be, I mean, I think it's going to be mainstream. I think you're going to see, as you said, it as common as credit card transactions. I think it's only a matter of time before this happens. And I think, it's only, the only question is what currencies are going to survive. Obviously, Bitcoin has the positioning now. It is, as you said, it has several advantages, specifically the fact that it's transparent, one, and it can't be produced. There's not going to be a million more Bitcoins out there. Um, in that, it's very similar to gold, and the fact that it's just becoming more and more legitimized is mind blowing. I like what you said about early adapters. Definitely got me thinking. And so where can they find the Giving Block? Where can they get in touch with you? What's your contact information? What are next steps for nonprofits?
Yeah, so you can always go to our website, which is thegivingblock.com, submit a contact inquiry. You can set up a demo with us through that. Or, we're most active on Twitter when it comes to social media. So at the Giving Block, or my personal handle is at Alex Wilson TGB. You can follow me. You can DM me on Twitter if you've got questions. I'll send these links over to you too afterwards if you want to include those in the description or anything. But yeah, reach out to learn more. We're happy to talk to more nonprofits and help you get ready for the next wave of crypto donations.
Absolutely. His name is Alex Wilson, co-founder of the Giving Block. And please do reach out to him if you're interested in accepting cryptocurrency, which it sounds like we all should be. I'm going to go ahead and end the broadcast.